You know, a lot of people have this idea tucked away in the back of their mind that when the big moment comes, they'll suddenly rise to the occasion. They'll perform better than ever before. They'll show courage they've never practiced, discipline they've never built, strength they've never used. But life doesn't work like that. When pressure comes, you don't get lifted up by magic. You fall back to the level of the habits you've been practicing every single day. Think about it. The athlete doesn't win on game day because of game day. He wins because of the thousands of practices before it. The soldier doesn't suddenly become disciplined on the battlefield. He falls back to the drills he's repeated over and over again. The businessman doesn't rise to the pressure of the negotiation by luck. He draws from the daily habits of preparation, study, and discipline that were built long before the deal. So when you hear people say they'll show up strong one day when it counts, understand what they're really saying. They're saying they haven't built the habits yet, but they're hoping for a miracle. And miracles are rare. Habits, on the other hand, are certain. You will always default to them. You can't escape them. They are the real measure of who you are when life puts you to the test. That's why the secret is to stop waiting for the big occasion and start building the habits now. Because when the occasion comes, and it will, you won't have time to prepare. The moment won't give you a warning, and when it comes, you will either be ready or you won't. Not because of the dream you had, but because of the habits you lived. I want to talk about why so many people live under the illusion that they'll rise to the occasion, and why that mindset costs them more than they realize. Most people hold on to this idea that when life puts them on the spot, something inside of them will suddenly ignite, and they'll rise to the occasion. They believe the pressure of the moment will somehow unlock their hidden strength, their best effort, their greatest discipline. But have you noticed how rarely that actually happens? Think about it. The student who hasn't studied all semester believes that somehow on test day they'll rise to the occasion. The person who hasn't trained for the marathon hopes that when the race begins, adrenaline will carry them to the finish line. The employee who cuts corners, shows up late, and never sharpens their skills thinks that when the big promotion opportunity comes, they'll suddenly transform into the perfect candidate. But the truth, it almost never works out that way. Because here's the reality. When the pressure is on, you don't become something new. You don't magically rise above yourself. No. You fall back to the habits you've been practicing all along. The student falls back to the habit of procrastination. The runner falls back to weak preparation. The employee falls back to mediocrity. Whatever your habits are, that's where you land. I remember a young man once told me, "I'll get serious when the time comes. When the opportunity shows up, that's when I'll give it everything I've got." I had to tell him straight, it doesn't work like that. You don't put off discipline until the day it's required. If you do, the occasion will crush you. The moment doesn't make you, it exposes you. It reveals who you already are, shaped by years of choices and patterns. Think of it this way. If you squeeze an orange, what comes out? Orange juice. Not apple juice, not grape juice, only what's already inside. Life works the same way. When pressure squeezes you, what comes out is whatever you've been putting in day after day. If you've been feeding on excuses, if you've been practicing laziness, if you've been tolerating weak habits, that's what will spill out under stress. But if you've been practicing discipline, if you've been strengthening your character, if you've been building small daily victories, that's what shows up when you're squeezed. And this is why the illusion of rising to the occasion is so dangerous. It convinces people they don't need to prepare. It tricks them into believing that one big effort, one burst of energy, one shining moment will make up for years of neglect. But life doesn't pay out on promises. It pays out on preparation. The occasion is not the time to decide who you are. It's the time when who you are is revealed. And that's why the work has to be done in advance, in the quiet, in the small habits nobody sees. Because when the spotlight hits, it's too late to rehearse. Habits are not flashy. They don't make headlines. No one claps for you when you choose an apple over a donut, or when you put a few dollars into savings instead of spending them. But make no mistake, those small choices, repeated day after day, are the foundation everything else rests on. See, habits are like bricks. One brick on its own doesn't look like much, but stack one, then another, and before long you've built a wall. Stack them carefully, consistently, and you'll have a fortress. But if the bricks you're stacking are crooked, if they're weak, if they're out of place, don't be surprised when the whole wall collapses at the first storm. That's what habits are. The little bricks of your daily life, stacked in the direction of your future. I don't count on motivation, count on habits, because motivation comes and goes. Some mornings you feel inspired, some mornings you don't. Some days you're full of energy, and others you feel like doing nothing. But habits don't ask permission. Once they're formed, they run automatically. And that's why habits, good or bad, always end up being stronger than emotions. Think about how this works in everyday life. If you've built the habit of exercising, you don't debate every morning about whether you should go to the gym. You just go. If you've built the habit of reading, you don't need to feel motivated every night. You just pick up the book. If you've built the habit of saving, you don't wrestle with the decision each month. You just set it aside. The habit carries you where feelings fail you. On the other hand, if you've built weak habits, they carry you too. The habit of hitting snooze instead of getting up. The habit of doing those crossword puzzles all day instead of working. The habit of spending money before you've earned it. And when the big opportunity comes, when the moment arrives that demands your very best, you don't suddenly rise above those habits. No, you fall right into them. The lazy person doesn't become disciplined under pressure. The undisciplined person doesn't become focused because life got serious. They just default to what they've been practicing all along. That's why habits are the real foundation. They're stronger than wishes. They're stronger than dreams. They're even stronger than good intentions. Because no matter how much you want success, when the moment comes, you will always lean on what you've built. And if you haven't built the right habits, the moment won't save you. It will expose you. So the question is never, will you rise to the occasion? The question is, what habits are you building right now, in the ordinary moments, that you'll fall back on when life turns up the heat? Because that's the real test. Not what you hope you'll do one day, but what you're training yourself to do every day. See, neglect is subtle. It never shouts. It never announces itself. It creeps in quietly, disguised as just this once. Skip one workout. It doesn't seem like much. Spend a little extra money. It doesn't feel dangerous. Put off that project until tomorrow. It feels harmless. But stack enough of those little neglects together, and suddenly you look up and realize months or years have gone by, and you're nowhere near where you hope to be. The truth is, neglect is easier than discipline. It's always easier not to. Easier not to read the book. Easier not to save the money. Easier not to make the call. That's the great trap. Because neglect never feels costly in the moment. It feels comfortable. But comfort today often creates pain tomorrow. I once knew a man who built a good career for himself. He was talented, smart, and opportunities came his way. But he had one problem. He neglected the little disciplines. He'd show up late, just enough to be noticed. He'd put off improving his skills because he thought his natural talent was enough. He'd spend instead of save, assuming the good times would always last. And for a while, it seemed like he was getting away with it. But then, when the company hit hard times, when promotions were scarce, when results mattered more than charm, his neglect was exposed. The opportunities stopped, the trust disappeared, and he had to start over from the bottom. That's the danger of neglect. It compounds, just like discipline does. Small disciplines, repeated daily, build a foundation of strength. Small neglects, repeated daily, erode that foundation until one day it collapses beneath you. And it never collapses at a convenient time. It collapses at the very moment you most need it to hold. Think about your health. One day of poor eating doesn't ruin you, but years of poor eating will. One skipped checkup won't matter, but years of neglecting your health might cost you everything. The same is true with finances. One impulse purchase isn't dangerous, but years of spending more than you make will enslave you to debt. The same is true with relationships. Forget one date night, it happens. But neglect your partner year after year, and don't be surprised when distance grows and the connection fades. Every day you neglect sets you back a little more than you realize, because neglect is not neutral. It doesn't leave you where you are. It pulls you backward. And if you're not careful, you can wake up one day far behind the life you wanted, simply because you thought tomorrow would always give you another chance. That's why building the right habits matters so much, because life has a way of testing what you've built. And if all you've built is neglect, the test will be too much. So the challenge is simple. Don't let life was any harder for them than for anyone else. It was that their habits weren't strong enough to carry them. Without good habits, everything feels heavier than it should. But when you've built the right disciplines into your life, even big problems feel manageable. Why? Because you've rehearsed strength, you've trained perseverance, you've built resilience into your routine. Now here's the beautiful part. Once those habits are in place, they start working for you automatically. You don't have to wrestle with willpower every single day. You don't have to start from scratch each time. The habit takes over. And when good habits take over, they multiply results. They don't just add a little bit of success here and there. They compound, like interest on an investment. Over time, what feels small becomes extraordinary. Don't wish for less problems. Wish for more skills, because skills are built on habits. You don't become a great communicator by accident. It's by practicing daily. You don't become financially free by luck. It's by saving and investing habitually. You don't build a strong character overnight. It's by choosing honesty, discipline, and responsibility over and over until it becomes who you are. That's the reward of habits. They build a version of you that can handle more than you ever thought possible. And here's the truth. Life isn't fair. Some will face bigger storms than others. Some will have more opportunities. Some will have more obstacles. But habits level the playing field. They're the one thing you can build that no one can take from you. Your job may disappear. The market may collapse. The weather may turn. But no one can steal your habits. And as long as you have those, you'll always find a way forward. So don't underestimate the reward of building strong habits. It's not just about making life easier. It's about transforming who you are. It's about knowing that when the pressure rises, you won't crumble. It's about being the kind of person who doesn't just get through life, but thrives in it. Because at the end of the day, you don't rise to the occasion. you fall to your habits. And if your habits are strong, you'll rise anyway.